Oh, what is it? Can people with dementia have pets? That's what I'm answering in today's video. This video was prompted because I got a text message recently from one of my dad's oldest buddies. They talk frequently, text frequently. His friend, my dad's buddy, texted me and said, "Hey, your dad let it slip that he would really like a Jack Russell Terrier dog. Might not be a bad idea to help keep him active and help keep him company." So in this video, I also am going to tell you about how I got this cat. It's linked to my dad. And I'm going to share, can people with dementia have pets? I'm going to give you some things to think about if you are thinking about your loved one getting a pet. And I'll share with you my response and what I ended up doing with my dad. The other thing I'm going to make sure we talk about in this video is the most important factor that you have to consider whenever you're thinking about having a pet, in bringing a pet into your loved one's life. But first, let's just answer this question. Can people with dementia have pets? What do you think? Leave it below in the comments. Yes, no, maybe. Let me tell you what I hear when I hear a question like this. And it can be a question like any of these questions. Can people with dementia blank? Can people with dementia drive? Can people with dementia live alone? Can people with dementia cook a meal? Insert blank whatever you want here. This is basically what I do whenever somebody asks me anything about can my loved one with dementia blank, can somebody with dementia blank, is I basically just take out the word dementia. Like if I were to take out the word dementia, we'll do this. Basically what the person is asking is, can people blank? That's essentially the question they're asking. Can people drive? Can people have pets? Can people live alone? Can people cook? Now, when I ask the question that way, what's your answer? Like very clearly, like, sure, some people can. And that's how we have to think about every question we're asking when it comes to people with dementia. Not everybody with dementia is the same. Not everybody with dementia has the same symptoms. They're not in the same stages. They're not living in the same environment. They might have other medical conditions that make things different for them, more difficult for them. Maybe they have less medical conditions, so things are easier for them. Maybe they have more support from family members, friends, community services. There's so many different factors into why somebody with dementia may or may not be able to do something. So whenever the question is, can somebody with dementia blank, it's really just in your mind, switch it to, can people blank? And then you will realize that the answer is not always so straightforward. In fact, it is like never straightforward. We have to start treating people with dementia like the individual person they are. Not only that, when we're thinking about dementia in general, it changes. So right now, your loved one with dementia might be able to drive, might be able to live alone, but as the disease progresses, they might not be able to. So we just need to make room for the humanness and reality of what it means for somebody to have dementia. So now we'll just answer this question. Can people with dementia have pets? You've probably already guessed it. The answer is no and yes, both. It depends. So let's talk about the pros and cons, and we'll talk about the most important factor into this decision, and then also the decision I had made for my dad. And I should caveat this and say I am a huge animal lover. Like there's a cat rubbing against my leg right now, and my dog Nico is right down here. So like I love animals. I think they're very important, but there are some serious cons to also having a pet when dementia is involved. There's a 2021 study that looked at over 1,500 people and how having a pet or not having a pet impacted their life. And in this study, they found that people who owned a pet, especially a dog, had a greater likelihood of walking more. In fact, on average, the person who owned a pet, especially a dog, tended to walk 3 hours more per week than people who did not have pets. And we know that walking and staying active obviously is a really great thing for health overall. So that's a pro. That same study also found that it decreased loneliness to have a pet. Two really great pros. However, the interesting thing, surprising thing that the study showed is that also people who had pets, especially a dog, but were not involved in the pet's care, they actually had increased depression and a poor quality of life. So this means it wasn't just owning the pet, it was also something about taking care of the pet that had the positive benefit Otherwise, having the pet around and not having any responsibility and not being a part of that pet's caretaking led to increased depression and poor quality of life. I found that super interesting. Now, some of the other pros that we could probably think of pretty easily is that it helps people feel connected to something. To have an animal to feel connected to is wonderful. I can experience that benefit right now with just my dog, Nico. Also, for companionship, there's pros, and also a sense of purpose and meaning. All of that pretty much makes common sense. Now, let's talk about some of the cons of having a pet. We've already talked about having a pet, especially a dog, contributing to increased depression and poor quality of life if the person's not involved in the care of that dog. But some of the other ones, and this one I saw all the time in clinical practice, was rejecting care. This would be when the person with dementia actually needed some medical intervention, maybe needed to be hospitalized, and did not want to follow through with it because it would require them to be away from their pet. And so either they didn't have somebody who could care for them, for the pet, or they just didn't want to be away from the pet. And so they would reject care that they needed to stay with the pet. The other thing would be that it would increase anxiety and worry for the person with dementia. And this is more worried about, is the animal okay? Where is the animal? Have we fed them enough? Who's around them? And just can add this layer of anxiety, similar to how sometimes people who have fake baby dolls have anxiety if they're like, why isn't the baby moving? Why isn't it crying? Where is the baby? What's happened to it? And so sometimes it has that effect on people. The other thing could be, actually we'll clump this into proper care, would be overfeeding, not having the memory of like, oh, I've already fed them. And so the animal can become very obese and have lots of other health problems. Not being able to take the animal to the vet or afford healthcare. Some of these are cons for anybody, not just people with dementia. Not being able to walk the animal if it's an animal that really needs walks, like a dog. Not being able to groom the animal if it's an animal that needs grooming. And then probably the biggest one that has been a factor in my own parents' life is that the animal can be a big trip and fall risk. In fact, I now am the owner of 2 cats. Just had a dog. But you met Lola in the beginning. I also have a cat named Milo. They were both my parents' cats. My mom passed away. My dad was the owner of these cats. My mom pretty much took care of them, did the kitty litter box, fed them, all of those things. My dad was not able to do that, but we hired a housekeeper so the housekeeper could take care of the feeding and the kitty litter box and manage that. But then one day visiting my dad, he told me, take these cats out of my house. And I found out that he had tripped over one of them because they like to run by the feet. And it really scared him, and rightly so. A fall risk is, having falls is a horrible, horrible thing, especially the older you are and having dementia. It could be the catalyst for a significant decline and even death. So I took those cats home the same day and they are living in my house right now. So we have to consider fall risk. Now, the most important factor that I want to talk about in terms of can somebody with dementia have a pet is that we cannot just think about the person with dementia. Even if your loved one right now is in the earlier stages, we know it's going to decline. We know that they're going to lose more and more of their abilities. So we can't just look at the person with dementia. We also have to look at you. Are you able to take on the added responsibility of caring for another living being? It's something that is okay to think about. And your answer can be a breaking factor about maybe not getting a pet, because the main responsibility will absolutely fall on you. That's nothing we have to feel guilty about. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means you're thinking realistically about another living being's life and what that's going to do for your life. The other thing we have is, I'll wrap it up with my dad's decision. So ultimately, I decided my dad having a dog was not a good idea. So we've already talked about how he was a fall risk with the cats. I think that's going to be a big deal for him with a dog. And he's very limited mobility-wise. He's in an apartment right now. He doesn't even leave that apartment except to step a couple of steps outside and have a cigarette. And he doesn't, he can't take out his trash, can't do any of these things. We obviously have help coming into the apartment to help him. He really wants to live alone right now. We're doing everything we can to keep him safe. At some point that will change in terms of his ability to stay there. But right now, he can't walk the dog. He can't feed the dog. He certainly couldn't walk the dog. If the dog did go outside and he let it go, he couldn't pick up after the dog. Fall risk is a big concern. He would not be able to manage vet appointments or take the dog to the vet appointments. All of that falls on me. And I just simply, number one, I don't think it's fair to the dog. And number two, I can't take that on right now. It's not something I'm willing to take on right now. And so the response from my dad was, no, that's hard. but caregiving decisions are sometimes hard. So Careblazer, what do you have to say about this idea of people with dementia having pets, your loved one with dementia having pets? Have you run into this? Have you had to make a decision? If you have a pet, how is it going for your loved one? I'd love to know everything. We can have a conversation in the comments below. If you're somebody who wants to join a community of other like-minded Careblazers who are making tough decisions, supporting one another, and getting direct answers from me and other dementia experts, I'd invite you to look into our care course. It's my signature program. There's a link below where you can learn all about that as well. We come together every week. I'm sending you so much love. Whatever is happening to you, whatever is going on in your world, in your journey, in your loved one's life, just love to you all. Thank you so much for being here. Bye.
Also, Nico gets a belly rub for every person who subscribes from this video. So if you haven't already, click the red subscribe button. It's totally free, and Nico says thank you very much.